Hello and welcome. I'm your host Ramesh Ramachandran and this is India Calling, a brand new weekly show on all things India and G20 just for you. A warm welcome to viewers joining us from India and around the world. It's the 1st of January 2023, so wherever in the world you are, we wish you a very happy new year. All right, over the next 30 minutes, we'll get you all the news related to India's presidency of the G20. Now, India, as you know, is the G20 chair. It succeeded Indonesia as the G20 president on 1st December. Now, this year, more than 200 meetings will be held in nearly 60 locations spread across the length and breadth of this vast and beautiful country called India, all leading up to the next G20 summit to be held in New Delhi on 9th and 10th September. All right, let me dive straight into our first segment, which will give you a roundup of all the week's G20 activities. Take a look at this report. It will give you a lowdown on the launch of a Stay Safe online campaign and G20 Digital Innovation Alliance.
As part of India's G20 presidency, Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnaw, launched the Stay Safe online campaign and the G20 Digital Innovation Alliance on Wednesday. During India's G20 presidency, the Minister for Electronics and Information Technology will focus on three priority areas: digital public infrastructure, cyber security, and digital skill development. They also aim to carry forward the vision of the digital transformation of the global digital economy for public service delivery through innovation and a future-ready, digitally skilled workforce in a secure cyber environment.
These two programs basically point towards the two most important threads that we are facing in the digital world today: cybersecurity and the great potential of our startup. This G20 will be presenting our India's philosophy to the world, the philosophy of one earth, one family and one future, which is a very inclusive way of thinking, which is a very humanitarian way of thinking, which is a way of thinking which believes in the oneness of the entire humanity.
At the launch, India's G20 Sherpa, Amitabh Kant, spoke about how solutions provided by India have the potential to move people out of poverty around the world.
These two programs, Stay Safe Online and Digital Innovation Alliance programs, are the first, amongst the first programs to be launched worldwide by G20 as a G20 initiative by any ministry. India's digital model is very unique. It's based on this public tracks on top of which private sector innovates. These are open source, these are open APIs, they are interoperable. So as this model of India spreads across the world, I think one of the key things will be how do we make people stay safe online? And that is that everyone must have the awareness and the tools to stay safe online.
The objective of the Stay Safe online campaign is to raise awareness among citizens to stay safe in the online world due to the widespread use of social media platforms and their rapid adoption of digital payments. Whereas the G20 Digital Innovation Alliance aims to identify, recognize and enable the adoption of innovative and impactful digital technologies developed by startups from G20 nations as well as invited non-member nations, which can address the needs of humanity in critically important sectors of agri-tech, health tech, education tech, fintech, secured digital infrastructure and circular economy. As the G20 president, India now has the opportunity to scale up its digital transformation to benefit the entire humanity. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now to our next segment called Explainer, in which we break things down for you so that you stay better informed. I want to talk about the engagement groups of G20. Take a look. Like I told you in the last episode, the non-government side of G20 has 9 engagement groups. Now, these groups give recommendations to G20 leaders and help shape policy. Now, these 9 groups are Business 20, Civil 20, Labour 20, Parliament 20, Science 20, SAI 20. I'll tell you what SAI stands for in just a bit. Then we have Startup 20, Think 20, Urban 20, Women 20, and Youth 20. Now, Business 20 is a dialogue forum representing the business community. It was set up in 2010. It's among the most prominent engagement groups in G20. Civil 20 provides a platform for civil society organizations. It was set up in 2013. Next, Labour 20 deals with labor-related issues. It was set up in 2011. Parliament 20 is for speakers from Parliament of G20 members. It was started in the year 2010. Next up, Science 20 comprises the National Science Academies of the G20 countries. It was started in 2017. The Supreme Audit Institutions 20 was started by Indonesia in 2022. It focuses on transparency and accountability. Startup 20 has been proposed by India. It offers a platform for and tools to foster collaboration and spur innovation. Moving on to Think 20, it brings together think tanks. It was started in the year 2012. Next, Urban 20 was set up to discuss urbanization issues. Women 20 was launched in 2015 to address the issues of gender gap in labor force participation and inclusive economic growth. And last but not the least, Youth 20 for the youth. It was launched in 2010. Right, next I want you to take a quick look at the past G20 summits. And now to one of my favorite parts of the show, the Did You Know segment. Did you know that some countries that are not members of the G20 are invited to the summit, or that some international organizations are also invited? Now take a look at the graphics we have got for you. Spain is a permanent invitee. Now every host country invites non-G20 countries of its choice. India has invited 8 countries: Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, the Netherlands, Oman, Singapore, and the United Arab Emirates. 11 organizations are part of the G20 process. They are the United Nations, the IMF, World Bank, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, the International Labour Organization, the Financial Stability Board, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the chair of the African Union, the chair of the African Union Development Agency, New Partnership for Africa's Development, and the chair of ASEAN. Now, India as a host country has invited 3 more organizations: the International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and the Asian Developing Bank as special guests. Now, there's something else I want to tell you. Now, India is the land of ancient wisdom with a modern outlook. India is a technological powerhouse of talent as well. But did you know that India is the 3rd largest startup ecosystem in the entire world? With more than 100 unicorns, the Indian startup ecosystem is only growing. Now, a unicorn is a privately owned startup business worth more than $1 billion. And did you know that India ranks third in the world's most desirable locations for technology investments? Right, moving on to the segment that viewers are waiting for, the Q&A segment. We have a viewer who sent us this video. Take a listen.
I'm Rishabh from Delhi. I'm hearing a lot about the Global South. I have a question. What is the Global South? What does it mean?
So Rishabh from Delhi wants to know about the Global South. What is the Global South and what does it mean? Now, I asked Ambassador Anil Trigunayat for an answer. But Trigunayat is a former Indian envoy to Malta, Libya and Jordan. And here's his reply. Take a listen.
Well, the Global South essentially comprises of the countries that are the southern hemisphere of the world, and essentially denotes the developing countries, underdeveloped countries on various economic, socio-economic indices. And they have often, they are the largest group of countries, but since the 1990s we have seen that the economic pivot is essentially moving towards the south, and therefore their voice has increased, and India has always stood for the developing world, third world as it was called at one time, fight against colonialism, for their rights, for seeking better access to the global goods in the international discourse. And that is why when we talk about the leadership or being a voice of the South, means the voice of the countries that cannot represent themselves, cannot fight for their rights. And India, which is today the fifth largest economy and will soon be fourth or third largest economy, the largest democracy in the world, will have the largest population in the world, obviously rightly placed to represent the interests of these countries. And because we have been colonized, so we understand what decolonization means. We have fought for decolonization of the largest worlds, be it in Latin America, be it in Asia, or be it in Africa. So all over, India has been trying to do that through non-alignment, through the international organizations, multilateral institutions like the World Trade Organization, or for that matter WHO, now that we are fighting for the vaccines, availability, intellectual property right waiver, and essentially creating some kind of an equity and justice for the developing world. And that's what it means in my view.
Alright, next I want to tell you a bit about how foreign media is covering India and the G20. My colleague Antara Sinha has more.
We are back with some articles in foreign media that have covered India's presidency and the G20 this week. If we look at the first article, which is an opinion piece from the German newspaper Politico, it is titled Opportunities and Challenges of India's G20 Presidency. The article features a picture of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and reads, assuming the platform's mantle, New Delhi has an unprecedented chance to test its clout and credibility in tackling the fragmented global order. The article focuses on how India can play an essential role in data for development. It reads, Prime Minister Modi also suggested that data for development will be an integral part of India's presidency. The digital transformation shouldn't be confined to a small part of humanity, and its greater benefits will be realized only when digital access becomes truly inclusive. India's own experience in the past few years has shown that if digital architecture is made widely accessible, it can bring about socio-economic transformation. Thus, under its presidency, India will have to navigate a delicate balance, overcoming partisan pressures from both sides to bridge the East-West conflict. Last month, while addressing the valedictory function of the 9th World Ayurveda Congress, PM Modi had said India has put forward a futuristic vision of One Earth, One Health in front of the world. One Earth, One Health means a universal vision for health. An article published on the official website of the World Health Organization. The article is titled One Health in G20 Countries. The article states how G20 aims to take forward the idea of One Health. It mentions how multiple consultations with governments and input from the One Health high-level expert panel helped identify 7 recommendations for countries to scale up this integrated approach. Next up, we have news from Reuters that is titled as an exclusive and says India plans $2 billion incentive for green hydrogen industry. The article highlights India is planning a $2 billion incentive program for the green hydrogen industry in a bid to cut emissions and become a major export player in the field. As we've stepped into 2023, we see our next article, which is from the World Economic Forum, an international non-governmental organization that is based in Geneva, Switzerland. The article in here says India expected to be world's fastest growing economy in 2023. It further says India is set to be the world's fastest growing major economy in the year ahead. As a post-pandemic retail boom and recent bank balance sheet repairs lure new investment, this is likely to fuel hot demand for everything from cars to televisions, coal and airliners. The world's 5th largest economy is expected to grow 6% in the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024, according to a survey by the Indian Central Bank this month. Well, that's all I have for you from foreign media. See you next week. Over to you.
The G20 meetings are garnering attention on social media too. My colleague Tripti Tripathi gets you all the social media buzz. Take a look.
Welcome to another chapter of Social Media Buzz, where we will give you the latest social media trends of India's hosting of G20. With more than 200 meetings to go, G20 India is ready to spread the message of one Earth, one family and one future. We try to put forth some of the latest trends which make a mark in the week gone by. Social media was abuzz with posts on startups. With India becoming the hub of startup ecosystem, it is no wonder that there is a major shift towards it in G20. In fact, a new Startup 20 engagement group created under G20 India to foster collaborations, spur innovation across borders and facilitate economies in achieving the SDG target. The enthusiasm for G20 is not just restricted to India's urban pocket. In fact, its hinterland are all set to welcome the mammoth event. Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan's this post has become quite a hit among the youth as more than 350 students participated in various competitions. From Odisha's Kendrapada to national capital, New Delhi Municipal Council will work on dedicating a park featuring replicas of national animals from countries participating in next year's G20 summit. Amidst all that, the official engagement group of the forum, Civil 20 India, held its first meeting of the C20 working groups. Think 20 or T20 is an official engagement group of the G20 India, and it has opened the call for abstract for policy briefs, which will be based on the 7 official T20 task force. Ideas and suggestions in the policy brief would form the part of the recommendations to the India G20 presidency. If you work for a think tank or are interested in public policy, T20 India has introduced Idea Box. You can drop your suggestions and ideas, and the T20 core group will consider them for recommendation to the G20 India Leaders Summit. In this jet-setting age, India's youth has always played a vital role in shaping the global discourse on various issues of importance. With an aim to discuss, debate and deliver, the Y20 India has announced its 5 themes. Take a look. Well, that's all in this segment. I take your leave, but do follow our social media handles to keep yourself abreast with all the latest trends of G20.
All right, time now for our next segment, India in Numbers. I picked the power of youth in India as a theme, and I want to throw some numbers at you. Take a look. Now, more than 50% of India's population is below the age of 25, and more than 65% of its population is below the age of 35. Now, the average age of an Indian is about 29 years as compared to 37 for China and 48 for Japan. The youth literacy rate is over 90%. That means high use of the internet and very high social media penetration. Now, the growth of India's tech sector is because of the youth. The Indian tech industry employs 5 million people, and recent data shows that 500,000 joined the workforce in 2022. And that's not all. More than 10 million youth get skill training every year because India has more than 40 skill development programs. That was India in Numbers for you. Now take a look at what else is making news about G20 in India. And with that, it's a wrap.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a telephonic conversation with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. President of Ukraine conveyed his best wishes for India's presidency of the G20. Prime Minister Modi explained the main priorities of India's G20 presidency, including giving a voice to the concerns of developing nations on issues like food and energy security. The two leaders discussed opportunities for strengthening bilateral cooperation. Prime Minister requested Ukraine authorities to facilitate arrangements for the continued education of Indian students who had to return from Ukraine earlier this year. The leaders also exchanged views about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi strongly reiterated his call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and said that both sides should revert to dialogue and diplomacy to find a lasting solution to their differences. Prime Minister also conveyed India's support for any peace efforts and assured India's commitment to continue providing humanitarian assistance for affected civilian population. India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant in an article said that India will set new data standards in G20 stint. He added that data is today the world's most valuable resource and is essential for nuanced and effective policy making. In its G20 presidency, India will call for modernization of data systems and advance principles of transparency to better use data for development. The Indian Institute of Science IISc Bengaluru will function as the Secretariat for Science 20. The theme of S20 for 2023 will be Disruptive Science for Innovative and Sustainable Development. The deliberations within this broad theme will be held in Agartala, Lakshadweep and Bhopal during the year. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla calls upon elected representatives to celebrate India's G20 presidency, which will be used to display the country's diverse culture to the world. He said there would also be a conference of P20 along with the G20, during which chairmen and speakers of parliaments in the 20 countries will participate. Bureau Report, DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap. But news continues here on DD India. We'll see you next week with a new edition of India Calling on Sunday, 8th January. We leave you with a recap of G20 activities in the month of December. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay happy, and once again, wish you all a very happy new year. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.